the last thing that we were saying, we're on 32A1, and we're on the bottom first column. V'omar Rava. You have it, Mr. Haber? V'omar Rava. Hai lulav the saluk b'chad hutzah. The lulav that grew only a single row of leaves. So some explain, what does it mean, a single row of leaves? That means that the lulav has leaves only on one side of the spine. So I'm going to show a lulav here. In a moment, we're going to show a lulav, and usually what happens on the side of the spine, there are leaves going on both sides of the spine. So here, let's say this is the spine of the lulav. This is the center of the lulav, right? Here's the spine of the lulav. So that usually you have leaves growing on this side of the spine and this side of the spine. But here they're only growing on one side. There's no leaves growing on the other side of the spine. So that's the question, what's the halacha with this type of lulav? So we see the Gemara is giving all different types of examples. Good morning, Jaime.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We are 32A1. The Gemara gave, but so what's the problem, right? The problem is if a lulav lacks beauty, it's called that in itself, we said that the Chachamim hold that all items, the lulav, the etrog, the adas, and the rubs have to have a certain level of hadar, of beauty. And if the lulav, we said, is crooked, a certain type of crookedness, and not normal crookedness, right? If the lulav, if this is the lulav, if the lulav, the spine goes forward, we said if the spine comes back, we said that's normal for the spine. If it goes forward, the spine goes forward, we said that's not normal. Or we said if the top of the lulav is bent over like this, it's bent like it's bent. It's not the normal thing. It looks like a head of a snake. It's not normal for it to bend. It's a lack of beauty. And here also we're saying that if the lulav has only leaves coming on one side and there's no leaves growing on the other side of the lulav, that is also, so what's the halacha? The Gemara said that is pasul. Balmumhu. That's the lulav that's blemished, upasul, and it's invalid. So we could say that it means because of the lack of beauty, it's a blemished lulav, and the lulav you take is supposed to not be blemished. It's supposed to be beautiful. So that's just like the Gemara said, if the top of the lulav was snipped off, right? We saw different opinions how much how much had to be snipped off, how many tops of the lulav. Is it one leaf snipped off, or the Shulchan Aruch says if majority of the leaves get snipped off? Rabbi Yosef Cairo says if the top gets snipped, he doesn't say how much is the cut, but if the top of the lulav, someone goes with a scissor on the top of the lulav and cut the top of the lulav, let's say you went across like that, like a barber, you cut across, that will be pasul. That will be invalid if the majority of the leaves got snipped off. So that is a little bit what the Gemara is saying over here. Also, it's the lack of beauty of the lulav. We're going to see soon about the Gemara is going to continue talking in a moment about the lulav. Okay, so the Gemara says the following. Now others, by the way, learn that if the leaves are only on one side of the lulav, it's more than just it's a lack of beauty. It's not even called a lulav. So it's a different type of invalidation. You could say it's something. It's not. You don't call that a lulav if it doesn't have leaves coming out on both sides. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Rabbi.
No, it never had leaves. The lulav grew, but the lulav has leaves coming on this side of the spine. There's a spine, with the right, and on the left, there's leaves coming out both sides. If it never grew without having leaves on one of the sides, only leaves on one side, that is considered a blemished lulav. And some say that means it's not a lulav. You can't identify such a thing as a lulav. Just like there's certain character traits to make something a lulav. You won't call it a lulav, which would mean to say that even the opinion that we had before, Rabbi Yehuda, who does not require in order for you to fulfill your obligation of lulav, it does not have to fit the category of beauty. Even if it's not beautiful, it's still kosher, according to Rabbi Yehuda. That's not the halacha. But he would admit, according to that other interpretation, he would admit that if it's only leaves on one side, that means it's not even a lulav. And he would also agree that it would be invalid to use on the holiday. It's a defective lulav. That he would hold it's a defective lulav. It's not just a lack of beauty. Sometimes it's something called a lack of beauty. And sometimes it's called it's not there. Like they say a chazan. A person, let's say someone who leads the congregation, who if he doesn't have, let's say you want him to sing something. If he doesn't know how to sing, he's not. He's not qualified. Okay, so the Gemara says the following: Nifrasu alav. The Mishnah, yes.
We said thank you for bringing that point, because we said yesterday that it's not about beauty. We concluded that the lulav and a lot of mitzvot, it's good if you can make the mitzvah beautiful, but at the end of the day, if you have a lulav that's not super beautiful, but it's a kosher lulav, then you're patur. So in this case, it must be that it's not a lulav, it's a different species maybe, that it doesn't grow like a lulav, not only because that's not beautiful.
So to answer what Mike says the following: even though we said that all mitzvot, besides lulav, etrog, hadasim, and aravot, if it's not beautiful, you get credit. Like we said, you have an old talit, old tzitzit. It's not beautiful. It's very old. It turned the colors, turned yellow. It's still, you get credit. But when it comes to lulav and etrog, hadasim, aravot, there's a certain bar of beauty that if it doesn't have that bar of beauty, it would be invalid. But now, an etrog that's not the most beautiful let's say there's certain halachot, we're going to get into spots on etrog. There's certain things that even though it might not be the most beautiful, or let's say the way the etrog grew, some etrogim, the shape is much nicer than other etrogim. That's not called enough of a lack of beauty. But yes, the etrog and the hadasim and aravot, if it reaches a certain level of lack of beauty, it would invalidate it. Look at the difference between matzah and etrog. You have a dried etrog. Let's say last year's etrog, you can't use it even though it's an etrog, because it's dry. It's called that level of dryness. It lacks the beauty that's required, that's asked for by an etrog. Or the same thing by a lulav. If it will be a dried out lulav, it's no green left in the lulav. If it's now this lulav is only from this past Sukkot, so you see green, but let's say it's completely white, you cannot use it. Invalid. But if you have dried out matzah, the matzah is dry, whatever, or you have, we don't, it is good. Technically, you get the mitzvah. You missed out on beautifying the mitzvah, but you get the mitzvah. So there is a level up there, higher level that's required by lulav, and we hold by etrog, hadasim, aravot, than any other mitzvah. This is a unique responsibility, and maybe we could suggest that when you're coming off the holiday of Yom Kippur, you reached a certain level of holiness that everybody reached after Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and we have all the 30 days of slichot that the Sfardim say, and the Ashkenazim also do a certain amount of slichot. From Rosh Chodesh Elul, we blow the shofar. You reached a certain level that what now Hashem says, you're ready, I'm going to give you mitzvah to do, and I'm going to expect that you're going to have to do this mitzvah at a different level than all other mitzvot in the Torah. What do you say about that, Jaime? That's you when you reach certain levels in life, there's more expected of you. And therefore, that could be perhaps Hashem says, I want it to be in this level. And that's just an idea I'm suggesting.
Yeah,
So
you're held to a high. The higher you go, the higher the standard you're held to, right?
Exactly. You know, there's an amazing Ramban, Nachmanides, regarding a Nazir. A guy becomes a Nazir. I heard this from Rabbi Sif, the rabbi of the Young Israel of Manhattan, many years ago. He quoted this Ramban, and it made a great impression on me. He says, a guy becomes a Nazir. A Nazir, he doesn't cut his hair, he doesn't drink wine, he has to abstain from certain things, certain natural things that people do. They drink wine, they cut their hair, they groom themselves. He can't do that during the time period of his Nazirut. When he
They
finishes
can't even
his
eat
Nazirut,
grapes, right?
well, he can't go to graves, he can't go to cemeteries.
No, he doesn't even eat a grape.
He's right. He doesn't eat a grape. Exactly. I thought you said about
Forget
going to
wine.
a grape. Right.
Yeah,
Not only wine.
grapes.
Right. You can't have grapes. You can't have wine. And and when he finishes his zirut, he made this great accomplishment because he did it for the purpose, let's say, that he felt he needed to strengthen himself and he needed to reach certain levels he felt for himself. And he finishes the zirut, he brings the korban chatat, a sin offering. So the question is, why is he bringing a sin offering? He finished. Let's say he did a 30-day. The average Nazirut is a 30-day Nazirut. That's the average. What? Nobody should ever accept to become a Nazir today because we don't have korbanot to bring today. So no one should ever accept to become a Nazir. After he finishes the Nazirut, he brings a sin offering. Why should he bring a sin offering? He did an amazing thing. So the Ramban says, you reach the level of Nazirut and now you're stopping? What Jaime said, when you reach a certain level, then there's more expected of you. If you never reach the level, I can't expect that from you. But you saw you could do it. You reached that level, so now you're going to be taken to task for not remaining in that level that you reached. Okay, so now the Gemara continues. Nifritzu alav, if the leaves were torn. That's how Rashi explains the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if the leaves of the lulav, so here we got the lulav, so make believe these leaves got ripped off the lulav. So the Mishnah says, and then even if I went ahead and I tied the leaf, the Gemara is going to say, I tied them back together. Let's say they have a map. You take its individual threads and you tie it together, now you got a map. It's individual strings. So I went ahead and the leaves came off the lulav, and then I rebound them. Right? So what does the Gemara say? The Mishnah says it's no good. Nifrisu alav Amar Papa. What is nifrisu alav? Nifrisu de avid ki chufya. It was like a mop. It was like a broom. That's the case at the Mishnah says, even though you got it back together, but that's no good. The fact that the leaves were detached, it's not good. Maybe it's a lack of beauty. It's no good. And then the Gemara says, but nifredu, but the Mishnah stated, if it just separated, if the leaves separated, but they did not come off, they were not detached. The leaves of the lulav started going like this. They started separating. But it's still green. It didn't become white. So the leaves start separating. It's kosher. That's nifredu, the ifrid, and therefore since it did not get detached, it is kosher. So that's what the Gemara says, makes a distinction between leaves that got detached and leaves, and then you put it back together, and leaves that never got detached but had a certain amount of separation. Okay, so the Gemara continues. Boy, Rapapa. Rapapa asked the following question. Nechleka hatiyumet. If the middle leaf splits, mahu, do we say that there's a special, unique law for the middle leaf, over any other leaf. So the middle leaf would be, if you go along the spine of the lulav, so here's the back, so to the people on the screen, here's the back. I'm turning the lulav away from me. I'm turning the lulav towards you as if you were standing. So here's the back of the lulav. So if you go along the spine and you go all the way up, so as we go, the lulav starts branching. The leaves coming out of the spine, the center spot of the lulav, and the leaves are coming out, and the part of that center of the lulav that no leaves are coming out, and it just continues going up. That becomes the middle. That's called the middle leaf. As you know, the leaves of a lulav, each leaf is a double leaf. Each leaf has two parts to the leaf. If I would want to separate it, right? If I would go ahead, I would take my, it's like a leaf that folded over. See, if I could go ahead and split. I'm now splitting the leaf of the lulav, right? I just split the leaf. Every leaf is double. Now, I just split the leaf, right? So now, here the question is the middle leaf. If the middle leaf is split, is there a difference between, what's the halacha by splitting of middle leaf? So the Gemara says the following: Tashma, come in here. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Yochanan says the name Shua ben Levi. By the way, and you'll notice when people look for a lulav, they're always morning mark. We got a whole stack. This is the middle leaf. So if you go from here,
spine.
You're the spine, but now the spine, as you see, things are branched. You see, this is branching out. You see, this is separating. These are all separating. And at which point that it doesn't separate, that's the middle. See, this is separating, so this is not the middle leaf.
It's the continuation of the spine.
Exactly. That is the middle leaf. Right, exactly.
But it's not one leaf.
But it turns into generally it's one leaf. And you see each leaf, Mark, you see how each leaf is double. Everybody sees, Mark, you see how each leaf is a double leaf, right? And if that's split, so that's the question. And we're going to see. We're very particular about that middle leaf. The Ashkenazim are very, very particular about that middle leaf. Complete. They want it to be complete, and then we're going to see in a minute in the halacha exactly how much do you have any leeway. You don't have any leeway if it's open a certain amount or not. And here also the Gemara did not identify exactly how far is this split. Rashi learns that we're talking about the middle leaf split all the way down to the spine, all the way down, that middle leaf split all the way down to the spine. And some say that it means that the middle leaf split majority of the way to the spine. It didn't hit the spine all the way to the spine. So there's two ways, there's multiple ways to learn the Gemara. There's a third approach. Just will focus on those two approaches, that the middle leaf has really split. That's a good question. That's a good question. It doesn't seem to make a difference. No good. If you got the majority of the leaf, no good. Right, they made a difference if it's split. It's good. It didn't make a difference whether it's if it's split, whether you split it, or we didn't find a difference of whether it was natural or you did it. So therefore, that's the same thing by this question of the Gemara. This question of the Gemara, if that middle leaf splits, whether the other leaf, if one of the other leaves split, no problem. The question will be in halacha. We have to look up if the majority of the other leaf, meaning if the majority of these leaves split, what will be the halacha? That will be a question we have to look halacha lamaseh, right? Because the Gemara said yesterday that sounded like splitting is fine, but with the other leaves, right? But here specifically, the Gemara is talking about this middle leaf, something unique about the center leaf. And maybe it's also perhaps about the beauty of the center leaf should have a certain level of beauty. and it should be whole. So comes the Gemara and says, Tashma. Now, if you have a question, so do we have any precedents that we could look at to answer our question? So the Gemara said we have a precedent regarding if that middle leaf was removed. We found that if the middle leaf was removed, meaning if you remove any leaf on the lulav is kosher. If I go ahead and I pull out this leaf, a random leaf on the lulav, it's no problem. The lulav is kosher. But if I pull out the middle leaf, I cut that middle leaf, I pulled it out. Again, cutting that middle leaf would be a question. How far did you cut that middle leaf? Is there a certain amount? We'll have to see about that also. But if so let's say I went ahead and I left the lulav intact, but I took this middle leaf and I cut out this middle leaf all the way to the spine. I just cut up. They have like a nice picture over here in my book. So you went ahead and you cut that, that middle leaf. You took it out. It's now cut. It's all the way cut, all the way till down over here. So very good. So it says that's pasul. So we find that we have already on the books that it says on the books that I read on the Svarim, it's already said that the middle leaf is removed. It's pasul. Tashma. The Amar of Yochanan, Mishur and Shimon Levi, nitla tiyumet. If the tiyumet was removed, it's not there anymore. Pasul. Let's say it's split by itself, right? Is that the same? That's the Gemara's question. As Mr. Haber always likes to say, case, law, and reason. This is a different case. One case is it was removed. It's not there anymore. One case is, now our case is it's split. So the question is, the fact that it's a different case, not necessarily it's a different law. It could be the same law or not the same law. And that's what the Gemara, that's really what the Gemara is going to be discussing. Do we compare the case? Are they comparable or they're different? That's what the Gemara is going to say. So if the first approach of the Gemara is, it says nechlekat nitla tiyumet pasul. My love, most probably, what's the difference if it's removed or it's split? If they both lack it's not intact. So the Gemara is thinking that maybe the law will be the same. So the Gemara says, "Lo, you can't learn from that. It's not comparable because nitla shiny the chosile. When you go ahead and you removed it, it's not there anymore. So therefore, it's missing the actual lulav is missing one of its parts. But when a part of the lulav gets a little hit, you want to call it a hit, or it's just there's something split. It's like you have a car. Sometimes you can have a scratch on a car. Sometimes the same place you got a scratch, a little piece of the car was removed. You got cut off. They knocked off a little bit of the chipped off. It's a difference. Yes, one is scratched and one is, but it's not the same. So the Gemara says maybe it's possible that it could be kosher even if it's the top gets split. Top loop. And others say is that Omar Ramatan Mishum Levi Nechlakat Tiyumet. There is a version of the Gemara that says that Nechlakat Tiyumet, if the Tiyumet got split, Naseh Kemisha Nitla Tiyumet Uposol. If it gets split, we look at it as if it was totally removed. It's the same halacha, and therefore it would be invalid because it's missing. It's missing from it's chaser, and the lulav is missing a key part. This of the lulav, the fact that that part is missing, it would be invalid. So the wind comes along and removes the top leaf, removes it. Not right in a way that it removed. So now, but the question would be, Mr. Haber, how far how far down did it go? So meaning Rashi explains when it went all the way deep up to the spine, including a little bit of the spine, or others would just say the majority of the leaf. So up to the spine. So if according to those two opinions, for sure, if it's a minority of the leaf got cut off, got removed, it's okay. For a minority of that middle leaf got cut off, you're fine. Now, The halacha says the following in the Shulchan Aruch. He talks about if the top, he talks about this middle leaf. So let's see what he says. He says that some hold, the Ashkenaz opinion says, some say that if the top leaf gets cut up to the spine, that will be invalid. And he said, and that's the custom, because the Shulchan Aruch of Yosef Cairo himself did not make a distinction between the splitting of the middle leaf and the other leaves. And some say, and therefore, but we are, the Ashkenazim are strict about it. If it's split, if the top leaf is split, when you go to buy a lulav, the next time you go, you'll see everybody is looking like this. That's what they're looking at. They're spending a lot of time looking. They're looking at that middle leaf, right? That's what they want to see, if that middle leaf is intact or not. And not only that, and then he says, but mitzvah min amufcha, the Ramah says, the most ideal way to do it is take a lulav that the top leaf is not split at all. Because there are those that are strict, even if it's split a little bit. And now what's the problem if it's split a little bit? What's the problem? It's only a little bit split to the problem. So, but it's only a little bit. We said the halacha said clearly, but the halacha just say maybe it's a lack of beauty. But the Chafetz Chaim says the problem is that once it's split a little bit could turn into what? Once you make a little hole, the little hole in the fence turns into a big hole in the fence. Once you have a little leak, it turns a big leak. A little split could turn into, as a result of the what? You could that leaf, so you could go ahead and get split. Could go split all the way down. So therefore, there are those that the Ramah says that, what do you say? Yeah. Full Hallel. All 8 days of Hanukkah, we got full Hallel coming for the next 8 days. So therefore, the Chafetz Chaim says it should not be split. It should not be split at all. And therefore, a lot of people are very careful that it shouldn't be split at all in the top middle leaf. Now, the Chayei Adam says, one of the great commentaries says, that even any amount, therefore they don't even want it, if it's split at a little bit on top, they don't take it. They don't buy that lulav. But the Chafetz Chaim says, but there are those, let's see, there are those that are more lenient. So he says, but there are definitely opinions that say that even if it's split a little bit, small little amount, you don't have to worry about it. It's only if it's more significant. Maybe I think there are opinions say if it's a tefach, if it's split, let's say about 3 inches or so, then you should be, there's much more concern. Some give you more leeway when you're buying a lulav. So ideally you look for it there shouldn't be split at all. 3 inches, 3 inches. Less than 3 inches. If it was less than 3 inches, right? Let's say a tefach is around a little over 3 inches, right? 1 inch open, right? Oh, 1 inch open, right? So it's less than a tefach. Yeah. That it's less than a. Yeah. So right. Yeah. So if that halachically it's good, it's less than 3 inches. But the question is it still? Do you have to look? Should you look for a better one or not? So some.
Would be better if you did go separate.
Right.
But you separate.
Right. So
You're separating yourself by your own
That's fine. You separate because you during your shaking of the lulav. And you separate like right. So the Chafetz Chaim brings the two opinions whether you should be strict about using such a lulav. One opinion says as long as it's less than 3 inches, there's nothing to be strict about under any circumstance. No. Right. And the other opinion says if it's even any amount, you should be strict. It's above it's a stringency. Now it's it. What's say? Right, exactly. That's the concern. Now, even it's interesting. Even though the Shulchan Aruch, the Yosef Cairo, the Sephardi rabbi in the Shulchan Aruch does not mention this point, this concern about the middle leaf, but yet in the Yalkut Yosef from Rav Yitzchak Yosef, he says clearly. He says that if the middle leaf split up to the spine, which he's going with like the Rashi's opinion, nothing the majority. He went all the way, not the majority to the spine, all the way to the spine. He says that's invalid. But then he says, no, but 1 second. You know what? I have to. So we're strict, not that. We're strict. We have to see possible, but the Shulchan Aruch himself did not go with this. Meaning, our Gemara has 2 versions of the Gemara. Whether split of the middle leaf up to the spine would be a problem, would invalidate or not. Do we look at it like it's removed, or it's not look like it's removed? Right? We have 2 opinions of the Gemara. The Shulchan Aruch of Yosef Karo does not mention the middle leaf issue. So which seems to say he does not have a problem with that middle leaf. He doesn't look at the middle leaf different than any other leaf. That's what the Shulchan Aruch. He doesn't mention. You need the Ashkenaz rabbi to say that some explain that if the middle leaf splits up to the spine, then that's a problem. So we have to look. I have to research a little more in the Yalkut Yosef, more in the actual, more of the. See, this is a kitzur. I got to see more in the other svarim to see what the Sephardi opinion more a little bit about this is, about this middle leaf. But that's the bottom line that in the halacha they're talking about that middle leaf. Now, so Rav Yehuda Omer. Now we're continuing the Gemara. Okay, it's 7:24. So I just before we start the Gemara, so I just want to say we're not going to do the Gemara now. It's 7:24. Everyone has to remember the Baruch Aleinu that everybody's saying. Everyone has to make sure they say Hallel with proper Simcha. It's days of Simcha, with Simcha, and everyone has to remember the Alanisim. There's a lot of things, a lot going on in the davening. So we got the Baruch Aleinu, we got Alanisim, and on Shabbat you got to remind everyone. And I always say that Alanisim is tricky in Birkat HaMazon. Why? And last night I was with somebody, they missed it. Why did they miss it? Because Alanisim is early on in the Birkat HaMazon. It's in the bracha of No Delacha, the second bracha, not by the normal insert where we get it in Rachem, where we say the Alavio. So since it's early on, people think they have time to do the insert, and by the time they turn around, it's already they already missed it. So therefore, we have to be on time. And in Amidah, it's easy in the davening, but it's later than usual. We say it in the bracha, in the middle of the bracha of Modim. So usually people hopefully should be on top of that. They're looking for it. They're looking for it's yet to come. It's past the normal place that we have inserts. Happy holiday, happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, you too.
Thank you,
Jaime,
Rabbi.
Jaime, you gotta
Chag Sameach.
You too. Thank you much. Maybe you can send out to the group chat about Hallel today, because Hallel is something that gets lost in the shuffle. Everybody's lighting the menorah, but how many is everybody remembering to say Hallel today? I'm afraid not.
Thank you,
I'm not talking
Rabbi.
about your people and your group, Jaime, but just the reminders don't hurt anybody.
We're not exempt. Thank you.
Okay, no, and also there was a question here today: half Hallel, whole Hallel. It's all Hallel. So we see it's not so clear to everybody what's going on today. You know what I mean?
What's on, H?
Hi, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Thanks. Great to see you. Love you.
How are you?
Take care.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
À Chavin.